I can see. All right. Thank you for giving up your Sabbath afternoon, okay, and coming and looking at Daniel itself. All right. Let's do a quick summary of what we have talked about in the last session. There's a lot of things that we talked about, but it's just in preparation of what we are doing. Okay, so basically, when we look at Daniel, okay, we realize that Daniel is not, let me just get my highlighter. Okay, Daniel is not written chronologically. And there are a couple of reasons why it is not written that way. There is a purpose for it. Okay, last week we discovered one, and that is we found that chapter 2, and let me just change my pen. All right, chapter 2 and chapter 7 actually are related. Okay, both of them are visions. Okay, and then if you look at chapter 3 and chapter 6, they talked about the trial, and then chapter 4 and chapter 5, okay, they talk about the judgment and so on. Okay, this is a chiastic thing, and we also discovered that when Daniel wrote it this way, in all the chiastic, let me just draw an arrow here. In all the chiastic structure, is the A. Okay, the top in the middle there is a message, and last week we found that the message was found in the middle of chapter 4 and 5, and we found it was in verse 34. So in in Daniel 4:34, that was the crux of Daniel's message. Can you still remember what it was? No? Yep, in 2 weeks, a long time. Okay, so basically, if you look at the middle of the chiastic structure in Daniel 4:34, he says that Nebuchadnezzar was up there speaking, and then the last part of the verse says that God is the one in charge. God's dominion will last forever and ever. So that is the main theme of this first section of Daniel, okay, that God is in charge. Even though it looks like they are in trouble, like people are being punished, okay, God is still in charge. So that is the main idea of Daniel when he ordered all this imposition, okay. All right. Then the other thing that we discovered about Daniel is that Daniel is written in 2 different languages. Actually 3. Okay, actually 3. Okay. Daniel chapter 1 to chapter 2 verse 4 is written in Hebrew, chapter verse 3. And then verse 4 onwards. Verse 4 onwards is written in Aramaic. Okay, so from here to here it is in Aramaic. Why is my pen not working? Okay, and then over here this is in Hebrew. Okay, and can anybody suggest any reason for this? Why did they do that? Why is it written in 2 languages? What's the reason for it? Why Aramaic and Hebrew, and then there's a few words that were in Greek?
Could it be that Daniel was addressing 2 different audiences?
2 different audiences. Actually, it's the same audience, but there is another reason for that. Yeah, it's the same audience. Okay, it's going to the same audience. But yeah, that's a good point. Now, Aramaic is spoken by the common people. It's like the lingua franca. It's the language that is spoken by the majority. It's the common language, the colloquial language. In Babylon, it's a multiracial, multicultural place, but people uses Aramaic to speak. So Aramaic is the common language. Hebrew is considered as a holy or religious language. Okay, if you remember Ezra, okay, Ezra and Nehemiah, when the people around them wanted to negotiate, okay, Ezra asked them to speak in terms in Aramaic, but they purposely speak in Hebrew because Hebrew is the religious language. All right, so that is the thing. So when Daniel recorded in Aramaic, it was a common language, okay, down on earth. Everybody will understand this. When he wrote it in Hebrew, he's bringing up to the prophecy part. you notice that it's mainly prophecies. Everything is about heaven, the religious side of it all. So he arranged it in that order, that way itself. So that is the reason. That's why there's two languages. All right. So that was what we talked about last session. Okay. Any comments or any thoughts on that? Okay, so Daniel is not written as and when, but he actually have a very good structure. Okay, the other thing that I like to bring out is that if you look at prophecy, Daniel and Revelations, it's always divided in two parts. The first part and then the prophecy at the second part. The first part is very important. Okay, it's written in such a way that the first part tells us about God's character. How are we going to relate to God? Okay, before you go into the prophecy, because yeah, you may know all about the prophecy, you may master every little detail. Okay, but if the word of God doesn't master you, you are useless. Okay, the prophecies will be of no use. And so you notice that in Daniel Revelation, the first part, okay, actually help us to relate ourselves to God. Where should we stand? And we actually see a better, clearer picture of God. If you don't understand this part, the prophecies are useless. Okay, so if you study Daniel and later when you have a chance to study Revelation, it's the same thing. The first 3 chapters of Revelation helps us to build a better picture about God and ourselves. Same with Daniel. Okay, so the first 7 chapters help us to actually understand who God is, understand where we stand. And then when we look at the prophecy, we understand it better, we appreciate it better. Okay, so that's what it is. All right, let's go on. Okay, now why do we study prophecies? We have to make it clear. If you study prophecies for the wrong reasons, then you find that it's useless, it's meaningless. Okay, so here are some suggested ones. Okay, prophecies is an encouragement to God's people, and we need that encouragement. Okay, because in the last days you go through terrible times. Okay, and if we do not understand prophecy and we thought that, oh, what's happening to us? Okay, then it's useless. So prophecy help us to be encouraged, just like the Jews. You know, when Daniel was captured and brought to Babylon, it's very discouraging. But he knew, okay, he knew the prophecies. And so when he was in Babylon itself, he was very encouraged. Okay. The other thing is like mentioned in 1 Thessalonians 5:3 now. I have put the text in there, okay, but I'm not going to read every text. Okay, I put it in there so that when we have a recording, when we record this and you want to look at the recording, you can look at all the text itself. Okay, so another purpose of studying the prophecy is for us to get ready for the future. All right, so that we know, hey, this thing is coming soon. Let's be ready. And as you see it coming, you realize that, hey, the end is very soon. So be ready. Okay, help us to prepare. I like this next one. Okay, it validates and builds a confidence in God. You know, when we study Daniel, there's so many tiny little points that if they were to be wrong, you will start to doubt God. Okay, but when you see God is even faithful in the little things, we build that confidence. God knew what he was doing. All right, so that's what it is. So build, validate, and build confidence. Okay, that is something that we will do as much as we can for the first part of the studies. All right, okay. Next one, and God has given us the reason for it. He said that, look, there is no other God. Okay, there is no other God. Let me just mute him first. All right. There's no other God beside me. There's only one God that can tell the future from the beginning, and that is God himself, Yahweh. And so when we study prophecy, we are actually there to help us to realize that, hey, there's the true God. There's only one God. Okay, and it's very important. You know, by looking at Daniel Revelation, we realize that God is not stuck like why we are in time, in a time dimension. He's beyond time dimension. He can actually go from the beginning to the end. Interesting. All right. He knows the end from the beginning itself, and so he tells us everything, and so we have the confidence that he knows. And when things are fulfilled, especially when we look at the latter part of the prophecies in Daniel, you see how it fulfilled exactly on the dot. You really knew that God know what He's doing. Okay. All right. Now again, like I said, in between somewhere along the way, there's questions or you want to share, go ahead and share. Don't worry. All right. Let me just stop for a little while. Let me just see somebody. Okay, we have quite a lot of new faces over there. Okay, welcome, Maggie, David, and Pachara. Okay, that's interesting. How are you? Hi, David Fong. Okay, let me continue.
Hi, how are you?
Okay, there are a couple of reasons why we don't study prophecy. We shouldn't study prophecies because of that. One of the reasons is we do not study prophecies to predict the exact date. All right, that was the problem itself. Okay. All right, David, I mute your mic for a while because there's a lot of feedback. So when you want to speak, you just unmute yourself, okay? Thank you. All right. So we don't study prophecies to know the exact date. We just want to know prophecies so that we can be ready. We know that his coming is soon. Okay. We are not going to tell him, oh, he's going to come at the end of this year or at the end of next year. Okay. And okay, I believe this, that prophecies is also a warning to unbelievers. Okay, because when the things happen and they don't follow it, that's their loss, not our loss. It's a warning for them. Okay, of course, there are other reasons, okay, why you study prophecies, but basically, these are some of the things that I thought about. Okay, all right, before I go on, in this session itself, I also like to teach you certain techniques and methods and things that we want to do. So I like to share some resources with you. These are found in our church library. I happened to borrow this just before the virus broke out. Okay, this is from my church library by William Shea. William Shea is a professor in Andrews, and unfortunately, he just passed away, I think, February, okay, of this year. Just passed away recently. Okay, he's a very good historian. So I got lots of historical facts from him and so on. He's pretty good. Okay, the other one is by Mervyn Maxwell. Mervyn Maxwell is also a historian, also in Andrews. Okay, he's the not grandson, he's the son of Uncle Maxwell. Okay, he's the son of Uncle Maxwell. Okay, he's there. And he has it. He's a very good historian. I went on one of his tours. He brought us around the different areas in Michigan, okay, and tell us about history. He's very knowledgeable. Now, this book here, God's Care, is Daniel and Revelation, and it's a good book in the sense that he approaches the Daniel in the form like more like a personal thing. Okay, how God cares for you, and he gives the reason. So this is a good approach. The one that I really marvel is, okay, I don't think you can see this one. This is the Daniel Revelation by Uriah Smith. I have this for years now, since I was studied back in Singapore. Okay, in case some of you want to have it, it's free. Okay, the PDF form of this is free. Okay, it's in the thing itself. Just click on it and then you go over there, download. Okay, it has both Daniel and Revelation, and I like it because it gives a lot of detail. Even Ellen G. White actually tell us that this is pretty good. So this is another resource that you can have. All right, there. So those are resources, and of course, there are Bible resources that we have, Bible Gateway, and let me just change this one here. Okay, Bible Gateway and Blue Letter Bible. I'll show you how some of the things that I use from this site itself later on. Okay, so those are the resources that you can use when you study on your own. All right, I don't know how far we can go, but we go as far as we can. Just in case you have to stop halfway, those are the resources that is there. All right. Okay, now there was one problem that people had. This morning, during Sabbath school, they were talking of historical, what's the term that he has? Ooh. Anyway, the critical part. A lot of people look at Daniel very critically, okay, and they found a lot of fault, okay. One of them is Belshazzar is called king, but he's not. Nabonidus is the king, okay, according to the cylinders and the steel that we have found, okay. That was a mistake, they think. Darius was not mentioned, okay. Nebuchadnezzar insanity, the fiery furnace is as legends, okay. And then he said that Daniel was written in 2 languages, 3, like I said, okay, Greek. He said that this is not possible. It's probably written later. So a lot of these Bible scholars claim that Daniel was not written during Daniel's time, but it was during a 6 BC. Okay, so as we are studying, as you go along, you'll find out how this actually becomes true, all right, as you go along. The last point is very interesting. Daniel chapter 9, 10, and 11 gives a very detailed historical account, or rather prophetic account of the history during the intertestamental time. Okay, very detailed. They even give you things like they are married to whose son is dead, and things like that. They're so detailed, so much so that these people who do critical studies say that it's not possible to be written during Daniel time. It has to be written after the event. All right. So as we go along, as you go through the thing, is that you find that how we actually realize that Daniel was written at that time itself. He was an eyewitness to things. He put in details that someone later will not actually know. All right, so let's go on. Okay, let's go into the first of the exegesis itself, Daniel 1, their story. Okay, remember that 3 parts. I break it into 3 parts. Their story, I will give you the background, okay, some of the things behind. And then I like to emphasize on the last 2 parts, God's story and our story. Okay, because when you study all these, like I said, the first 6 books of the Bible, of Daniel itself, it will be meaningless if you cannot find out our own story. How does it apply to us? Okay, so what I like you to do as we go through this first part, I like you to think about what kind of picture of a God you can find. Who is the God that is leading Daniel? What is he? Who is he? What can he do? And then more importantly, how can this apply to us in the last days? Okay, we'll spend more time at the end of it, hopefully soon. Okay, so let's go on. Now, a little bit more background. Okay, I have quite a bit of this historical background, just the main highlight, so that when you visualize, when you study Kings, Chronicles, and you study about Jeremiah and so on, you have a better picture. So we start with 609. What happened was during that time itself. Okay, now if I'm going too fast, let me know, all right? Because sometimes I might just go quickly through or whatever, so you can always stop me along the way. All right, anyway, during Daniel's and Jeremiah's time itself, there are just a few main kingdoms. Okay, Assyria, of course, Assyria, you know, Assyria came and captured the northern kingdom. Assyria was a power. Assyria connect itself with Egypt, so they one big power. Okay, and then Babylon was a small, actually Babylon was only a small little unknown little town at that time. Okay, the first era of Babylon, all those famous kings, Sargon and so on, they are dead. Okay, so it's just a small little town, but it was slowly growing up, getting into power. Okay, at the time, Pharaoh Necho, this is found in our Bible itself, so I'm using his words. Pharaoh Necho and Assyria was the main power. And what happened was that in 605, Babylon started to grow up, okay, and Nebuchadnezzar came out and he went to this place called Carchemish. Carchemish is in on the border of the Euphrates River. And then they had a big battle over there. Nebuchadnezzar won. Okay, when Nebuchadnezzar won, the gateway to the south is opened. The garrison that was there, Assyrians and the Babylonians, not Babylonians, the Egyptians were destroyed. So Nebuchadnezzar found that it's free to come down to the south. All right, that was 605, and he did. He came down all the way to the south, and he actually went to Jerusalem. Okay, and when he was in Jerusalem itself, he actually went in and sort of surrounded Jerusalem, and then they gave up, Jerusalem gave up. Okay, so that was the time 605. That was the first stage, first time the Babylonian came down and attacked. Okay, I have some things over here about Josiah. If you like to read, it's very interesting. Some of the things that happened. Okay, that's historical part. Like I said, it's being recorded, so you can read it later on. I'm not going to spend too much time on that part itself. So that was the first stage, 605. Okay, all right. Now, altogether, there were 3 different times Nebuchadnezzar came and attacked Jerusalem. The first one was 605. Okay, in 605 itself, what happened was when he came down, because there was not much resistance, he just took the king and said, okay, never mind, I let you still be the king. So Jehoiakim, okay, was still the king. And then what they did was, now, a little bit of historical background. In the old days, when a king come and capture a country, he does several things for good reason. He actually take away all the noble people, all the king's royalties, okay? He takes away the craftsmen, okay, the rich, capture them and then bring them away from the city itself. Why do you think they do that? Why do they go and capture only the top people and then bring them away, leaving the rest behind?
Well, I think there are 2 reasons.
Yep, go on, David.
One reason is to make sure that they can't rebel against the kingdom, against Nebuchadnezzar at least. The second thing is that these people are of some use to the empire after all, because they are smart, they can be retrained to serve the emperor.
Yep. Okay,
The
you heard
third
that?
thing is to stop them to rebuild Israel.
Yeah, okay, those are 2 main reasons. There's actually a third reason. Okay, those are the 2 main ones. Very good. There's another third reason. Notice that when they go down further away from the kingdom, and the kingdom gives a lot of resistance, they will capture everybody, and then these kings will bring them
How
out.
to make what?
Sorry. Okay, anyway, they come down, they capture these nations, and then let's say, for example, we have let's say Babylonian here in Persia, or let's say, okay, and the Babylonian is capturing them. You know what they do? They bring this nation up here and plant them in between their enemies. Okay, they put them in between the enemies. Okay, for a very good purpose. If the enemy attack, the enemy has to go through that nation first. And the nation will not give up, the nation will fight because they will come and destroy them. So they act as a buffer, for against the enemy. So that's the third reason. Okay, that's the reason for that. All right, so yeah, so that's the thing itself. Now, during that time, Jeremiah was still in Jerusalem. Okay, Daniel was taken out on the first stage. Jeremiah was there and keep telling them, don't rebel, just be nice, follow whatever, because this is the will of God. He did not. So Jehoiakim rebelled. He fought for a few years and then he died. Okay, he was killed. And then his son, okay, Jehoiachin, in the Bible, it gave him different names. Jeconiah, okay, he rebelled for a little while. Okay, and so Babylonian came down again, chased him out, put another person, Zedekiah. Then Babylon, they left. Okay, every time he leaves, he takes captives with him. Okay, the first time he took all the royalties. Second time he came down, he took all the craft people and some of the other royalties. The second round, he took Ezekiel. And they put them, like I said, they put them in between Persia and themselves in Susa. Okay, to sort of like act as a buffer from Persian coming in. Okay, so they did that. The third stage, okay, was same thing happened. He came down, but this time when Babylon came, they destroyed everything. They burned the whole city up. They destroyed the temple and they took everything from the temple. Okay, and they removed them. Okay, that was the end of it. Okay, he was very frustrated with the Israelites. Now, interestingly enough, okay, this is just the kings that went through. Okay, I will mention them. You can look at that later on. But interestingly enough, what happened is that there were 3 attacks, 3 stage, when they liberate the Israelite to let the Jews go back to the kingdom. There were 3 degrees decrease. All right, so they sort of match 3 stage, 3 degrees, and the timing is important. We'll talk more about that, especially the decrease or tells us when they're going to start the 2,300 days. Okay, that is one of those things that we'll talk about later on. But just for fun, 3 stages, 3 liberations, 3 degrees to liberate them. Just something interesting. All right. Another concept that you want to realize is this. Later on in Daniel, they talk about the king from the north, king from the south, and so on. It's very confusing. Okay, if you look at Babylon, Babylon's over here. If you look at Iran, okay, Elam is the old name for Persia. Okay, Iran is the modern kingdom that is there. This whole part is Persia. Babylon and Persia is actually, if you look at it carefully, is actually on the east of Judah. But every time they attack and capture Babylon and Judah, they always say they're from the north. They always come from the north. Okay, there's a very good reason. You see what happened is Israel itself, the whole Palestine itself, is mainly mountains over here. This whole part down here up to the Jordan River, all mountains. Beyond that is all deserts. Okay, beyond that is all desert. Okay, and so if they were to attack, they can go across the desert, but it's really ridiculous because you need to bring your own food, you need to bring your water. So when they attack, usually they go along the river part down here and they come down. This portion here is what the Bible called the Fertile Crescent. Okay, this is where a lot of food is. Okay, this is Euphrates, this is Tigris River here. Okay, I'm not sure whether you can, let me see whether I can think. Okay. All right. Okay. And just now I mentioned Carchemish, where Babylon defeated Israel, Egypt, and Assyria is found somewhere around here. Okay. So what happens? And this part is empty. There's no enemy. The Babylon can just come down and go down all the way down to the south. And that's what Babylon did. Okay. They went there and they came all the way down south. Okay, and then went around capturing all the whole thing and then make them all vassals, empires. Okay, now, any question? Can you visualize this? Okay, Persia is here, Babylons are over here. Nebuchadnezzar was from somewhere here, the north of Ur. Okay, they speak similar dialect to Abraham's ancestors. They speak similar dialects. Okay. So they have it there. Okay, and so on. All right. Now, this is what the Bible calls as the world at that time. Okay, that is all the kingdom that they have. Why is it called the center of the earth? Okay, when we study the Bible itself, okay, you notice that God focused only on the people of Israel. That was the center. Okay, because from there comes the good news. From there comes the Messiah. And so that is considered the center. There were the Huns, okay, the Chinese civilization, the Indian civilizations, and other civilizations. They're not mentioned, okay, in this part. They're only mentioned when they come in contact with the Israelite. Okay, and so when we study the Bible, the history is not the same as the worldly history. Okay, and so many times those historians will say, oh, this is not true. How come they didn't mention this person? How come they mention this person that was not there? When you study the Bible, Bible only focus when the people come in contact with Israel. And that is why there are lots of kings that were not mentioned. The Bible did not mention, oh, the king is not supposed to be there. Okay, let's look at this part over here. God's focus is actually on number one. First of all, is on the patriarchs. Okay, Noah, Abraham, the patriarchs, and things that happened to them. So wherever they go, you find that the Bible will just follow them. Okay, they have that. Then later, the patriarchs, okay, gave way, and then Moses came out. He took a whole thing as a whole nation. Okay, now they move as a nation. Last time they move as family units. But when they do that, God's focus is now on the nation itself. So you have your theocracy, you got the judges, the prophets, and then later the kings. These are the main center. And then eventually you notice that when Israel fell, when God says, okay, that's the end of it, at the end of the 70 weeks, okay, we'll talk about that later on. He said that that's the end, the message is now given to the Gentiles. Okay, and then when the Gentiles come, you find that the focus moved away from Israel to Europe. And that is why when you start to study Revelation and latter part of Daniel, you find that, hey, this shift, okay, it's no longer talking about Israel now. They're talking about other nations that are further away, okay, to Europe. Okay, that is because the focus is now moving towards where the Christian empire is. Okay, so when you study the Bible, you have to have this focus. Okay, the Bible is not talking about the world history. When you talk about the world, they're just talking about the world around the focus of God. Okay, so bear in mind that. All right, let's go into Daniel chapter 1. Okay, in Daniel chapter 1, if you have a Bible with you, okay, they say that they give the timing, okay, of when this was written and so on. Now, when I was doing the Sabbath school studies, that I mentioned that I like to look at small things. I call it tidbits, okay, and so what happened was, okay, I call it tidbits. There are lots of tiny little things in the Bible that is so trivial that you don't even bother to notice about it, like the genealogy. We don't bother. Okay, small little things that we think is trivial, you could be bothered about it. But when you actually study into it, it is interesting, it is true, and maybe significant. That's why I call it the tidbits. All right. Now, note that the tidbits has nothing to do with your salvation. It's small little thing. Just, I guess God put it in there just for the fun of it. So we enjoy studying the Bible to make it more interesting. But at the same time, when you actually look at all these small little events, for the critics, they will say, oh, the Bible is not true. But when you actually understand it, you find that you realize that, hey, the Bible is not something trivial. Every tiny little thing, there is a reason for it. And it shows you that it was done by someone who actually seen the event. They mention it. Okay. Let me give one example. When I was reading Jericho, okay, I don't know whether you noticed, but on the 7th day, when the wall of Jericho fell, okay, they mentioned this, and the Israelite went up into the city. They went up into the city and said, big deal, what is that? Okay, but when they started to discover about Jericho, they realized that Jericho was built on a hill. Okay, on the hill itself, and there are actually two sets of walls. Okay, two sets of walls. So when they discovered Jericho, they found that the walls had flattened out and they slide down. And so what happened was, when the Israelites want to attack Jericho, they have to go up into the city itself. Okay, small little things. The up there might not be significant to us, but when you read it, you go through and it's not important. But it gives us credibility. It was written by someone who knew or saw what was happening. Okay, let's say I'm writing as a historian, I would just say, oh, Israelite just went into the city, but he said, no, you go up into the city. Okay, so same with Daniel. There is a small little fact that was there. Okay, if you compare these two texts, Daniel 1:1, it says it was the 3rd year of Jehoiakim. Jeremiah recalled the same incident where Nebuchadnezzar went into Israel to capture. Both of them were writing about the same thing. But guess what? Daniel said it was the 3rd year. Jeremiah said it was the 4th year. Is there a discrepancy? Okay, small little points like this, and the critics will say, oh, your Bible is not true. Okay, so how do we explain this? Anybody? Is there a problem with this? Who is right, who is wrong? Nobody have any suggestions? Well, there is a reason. Okay, and the reason for this is that they use different kind of what we call reckoning. Okay, Daniel was in Jerusalem, in Babylon, so he used the Babylonian ways of reckoning. Okay. Whereas the Jewish Jeremiah uses the Jewish way of reckoning. So let me explain a little bit of what this is. Let me get my things out. Okay. All right. Change your pen. All right. So let's take, for example, the king, okay, started ruling over here. All right. And this is now. Okay. And then we find how many years, okay, you have to reckon it. So let's say the first one is, let's say the first one is by Daniel. He's looking at it. And then the second one is Jeremiah looking at it. Now, both of them are looking at things from a different way of looking. And this is important. When we study the Bible, many times we look at it from a Western eye. We don't understand what is in the Israelite eye, the Eastern eye. Okay, so let's look at what happened now. The Babylonians, okay, what they do is okay, this is the year of the ascension. This is the year when they became a king, let's say, for example. Okay, but the New Year, Babylon New Year starts here. So what they say is that, oh, that year is considered as the year zero. The year of ascension is considered the year zero. All right, that's how the Babylon reckon the time. And then after their New Year itself, okay, they consider this the first year, second year, and then the third year. So to Daniel, this king has been there for the third year. Okay, now to a Jew, okay, they do the same thing. When the king take over, the king is just standing there. He's not a king yet, so it's still zero. But on the Day of Atonement, which is usually around October, the Day of Atonement, they have their coronation. Solomon was coronated on the Day of Atonement. Okay, that's when they start. So on the Day of Atonement, they actually have the official coronation. And so once they do that, they start number one. So you notice that the Day of Atonement is before the New Year of the Babylons. Okay, so they start number one, and then number two, number three, and then number four. Okay, so to Jeremiah, this is the fourth year. All right, so both of them were correct. It's just a different reckoning. Also, the other thing I like to mention, I thought I wrote something about it. Okay, now, let me check. Okay, the other thing is you notice that the third year is only part of the year. The fourth year is only part of the year. But to the ancient people, they do what we call an inclusive reckoning. Okay, let me just go back a little bit. I didn't write that down. I thought I wrote it down. Okay, oh yeah, I did. Here we go, down here. Okay, they did what you call an inclusive reckoning. A part of the day is considered as one day. So a part of the year is considered 1 year. So like Jesus, when Jesus died, the Bible records, oh, he died and then he rose on the third day. But people will say, how can that be? 1 day is 24 hours. So 3 days you have to 24 times 3, 72. Okay, but there's not enough time. Okay, therefore Jesus cannot have died on Friday, because Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is less than the number of hours. Okay, that is our thought. That's a Western thought. One day is 24 hours. To a Jew, part of Friday is considered as one whole day. Saturday is 1 day, but part of Sunday is another day, so that's 3 days. Okay, that's called inclusive reckoning. So what happened was that you understand this, then we say that, hey, there's no conflict between Jeremiah and Daniel. Okay, so again, it helped us to realize that, hey, look, the Bible is written by different people at different times, but they actually harmonize with each other. Okay, so that's something that is really good. Okay, it might be trivial to many, but it's not. There's another trivia that is there. Okay, in Daniel chapter 1 itself, there are 3 things that God gave away. Okay, 3 things. The first one is found in verse 2. God gave the king of Judah into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar. All right. So the question is, why did God give this king away? Okay, that's the first gift. Well, let me just, okay. Long before Jehoiakim came into place, Isaiah predicted. He said that, look, your sons will be captured. They will be captive as eunuch in the palace. Okay, now notice that the word eunuch doesn't mean that just the way we think it is. Most likely it might be, but the word eunuch can also be translated as servant. So Daniel, when he was captured, he could be a eunuch. He can also be a servant. I suspect it's more of a eunuch actually. Okay, so that's the word. So long before the thing happened, they were warned. Look at your northern neighbors. Look at what happened to the 10 kingdoms. It's going to happen to you also. Okay, please turn back to God, but they did not. Okay, and so it's also God keep working with these people, and they gave many reasons. Okay, first of all the kings, Jehoiakim, okay, Zedekiah was bad. All these kings were evil. Now, let me go back a little bit. When the Bible says evil in the sight of the Lord, it's not in the sight of the world. Okay, King Ahab is one of the worst kings in Israel. But that is only in the Bible's view. You know that in history, King Ahab is considered a very good king. He built the infrastructure. He has peace in his kingdom. Okay, he let everybody choose the religion that they want. Of course, he forced them into a Baal worship, but he let everybody have their own choice. So in the eye of history of the people, Ahab was a good king. But the Bible says no, he's evil. Why was he evil? He was evil because he took the people away from God. He took the hearts of the people and then put them into the wrong place. Okay, and because of that, God's anger, okay, was against him. So he does that. All right, so that is one of the reasons why he does that. Okay, the other reason that was given in the Bible is this. Okay, now we heard of the 7-day Sabbath. Okay, we keep the 7-day Sabbath. That's why you are 7-day Adventists. But in Leviticus, they also talk about the land. Okay, you're supposed to work your land for 6 years. And on the 7th year, you're supposed to leave it alone. How do the people survive? Interesting. God says this. On the 6th year, okay, the land will produce 3 times as much. 3 times as much produce. Okay, so that when you finish on the 6th year, you have food. The 7th year, when you leave the land alone, you will have food. And the 1st year, when you start to grow again, you have food. So on the 6th year, God actually make the land reproduce a lot more food than what you think, that what you need. And then on the 7th year, you let it rest. Okay, the land is supposed to be rested. It's supposed to let it grow on its own. Okay, and that is a very good actually technique. They replenish the soil so that the soil will have its nutrients again. So apparently the people of Israel did not do that. Okay, they did not let the land keep the Sabbath, and because of that, is one of the reasons. Okay, have you ever wondered why 70? Why did God say, okay, I'm going to let Babylon capture you for 70? Why 70? Anybody?
Well, 10 or 7.
10 times 7, yep. Some people will think that 7 is perfect, so 10 times 7. Yeah.
No, because they get every year 7. They have a 7 cycle. See, they have 10 cycles, right?
Yeah, and they actually for 70 years, that is 70 times the whole thing. The people did not keep it, and so God says that, look, I'm going to punish you because of the land. And the time I'm going to punish you is the time that you did not let the land rest. Okay, and they go off, and then the land was left desolate. All right, so that's what it is. The land just grew on its own. Right, and what is interesting is in the modern Israel, I never understand why people want to fight for Israel. Okay, because Israel was actually a barren piece of land. There's nothing growing. You can't even find much water. Water by the river is drying up. Okay, but it's just nothing but desert. Okay, that's because God had actually removed the Israelites to let it become desolate. But when after 1948, when the Israelites started to go back to Israel, today Israel is one of the most productive land. Okay, they can produce all sorts of fruits and so on. Okay, God is blessing them again. Right, so the land is very important. That is the thing itself, and so they have to keep the Sabbath. Okay, and these people, Israelite, they swing to extreme. Okay, for the captive, they forgot to keep the Sabbath. Guess what? After when they came out from exile, what happened? They start to realize that, hey, we have to keep the Sabbath. And then they came up with a list of 300 over rules, okay, where you have to keep so that you can keep the Sabbath holy. And today in Israel, they're still following some of these rules. All right. On a Friday, you cannot. When I was in Andrews, it's very interesting. There was this Israelite man, and on Friday itself, he had to turn on the light at night and then leave it on for the whole day. Otherwise, he cannot turn it on. Okay, because switching on the switch on Sabbath is working. Right? And
I
they
did
go
that
to
for
their,
a Jew.
oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they do. So they ask you to do it. Yeah, you broke the Sabbath. Yeah. He will get a Gentile to do it. You're right. Yeah, and then it's interesting when they go to church. Okay, the church has to be within half a mile or so. Okay, if it's beyond half a mile, you know what they do? They will take something, and then they go to the halfway mark and they put a property there. Okay, and so that is considered as legal. Okay, if you have a property in between, you can pass your property and go to the church, so you can travel more than half a mile. Yeah, they come with all these tiny little things because of this exile. All right. Anyway, yep, there's something else. All right. Good news. Okay. Whenever God gave them up, okay, it's not God who separates himself from the people. It's because the people have separated themselves from God. God cannot force himself on us. If we do not want him, he will not come to us. Okay, God is still watching them. God was still with them. So remember that when God seems so far away, it's not because God has separated himself from us. It's because we have separated ourselves from God. Okay, that's one thing. When God gave up the whole nation of Israel, gave up, that's what he says in verse 2. He's still with Daniel. He's still with the individual. All right. And through Jeremiah, he says, look, I give you up for 70 years, which means that there is another chance. Okay. Unfortunately, they blew it. Okay. But get another chance to come back and then redo everything again. So when we fall, okay, God will still be with us and give us a second, third, even the fourth chance. That's a good thing. All right, there's another point that I'd like to talk about over here. Notice that the moment that God gave up on Judah, guess what? Satan comes in, he destroys, okay? And destroyed so badly that the whole city of Jerusalem was burned down, all the temple was destroyed. All the Israelites were actually removed. Okay, it says that in the Bible, it says that only the poor and the people that nobody wants were left behind. All the craftsmen, anybody that got used, they take it out and then put it somewhere in Susa. Okay, they do that. So that's where the Samaritans come in. Okay, that's where the Samaritans come in. Now, my question is, why did Satan do that? What was Satan's purpose doing these things? Why did Satan purposely choose to push the Judah into captivity? What do you think? If we understand this, we actually can understand a lot of things that's happening. Anything? Ooh. have to move faster. All right, let me give you suggestions. Okay, ever since Genesis 3:15, okay, Satan has been on the lookout because he knew that God has a plan. God has a seed, okay, and that seed will be fighting against him. And so from that time onwards, Satan was always on the lookout. He would do his very best to stop the seed from being produced, okay? And he knew that the seed was going to come through Abraham. So what he did from having his own child, tried to make Abraham get an Egyptian wife, okay, to give birth to Ishmael. He tries all sorts of ways and means, okay? If you study the whole Bible, this is one thing that you want to remember. Satan, whatever Satan is doing, he's doing it so that he can stop this seed from being born, okay? And then from this seed, the remnant. When we go into Revelation, we talk about the remnant and so on. That's the same thing. So there was this great controversy. Satan is always fighting against God people. Okay, so when you study all these wars and so on, there are always two sides of the story. Okay, and there's always a war. We call it a great controversy. Okay, there's always this war. We can't see it, we don't realize it, but there are always these two sides, all the way to the very end. Okay, but let me propose something. When we talk about wars, war is not a real battle where they actually just take knives or gun or whatever to shoot each other. Okay, when they talk about wars, there's war in heaven. Okay, the war is not a physical war. The war is a battle of the brains, of your mind. Okay, that is what the war is all about. In the last day, when they talk about Armageddon, okay, Armageddon, again, the battle is in the mind. It's not so much a physical, there might be a physical war, but the war is actually in the mind. I had this Greek word that is translated to war, and they come from the word, okay, polemos, okay, and then from the word polemos come from the word polemic. Polemic is like a debate, okay, like a battle with words, ideas. The Greeks are famous for that. They'll take a box in the market, they put it there, stand up, and then they start preaching and fighting, and then they argue with each other. Okay, they are very good for that. So remember that whenever you see the word war, it doesn't mean a physical battle. Okay, there's a war going on. There'll be two sides fighting for your mind. Okay, there's that war. It's going on at time, and we will be given a glimpse of it later on. The Prince of Persia and so on. Okay, we're part of the great controversy. We're right in the middle of it. Two sides are fighting. There's always the two sides. Okay, all right. A little bit on the king itself. I'm going to skip this quickly. Okay, the king is the main king, the chief king, the king of the main ruler of the pantheon. Is called Merodach. Okay, Merodach. Merodach is the main god. It is equivalent to the Greeks' Zeus. Okay, what the Greek did was, Greek and the Roman, they just take the idea and then they just carry over. The same god, different names, that's all. Okay, and if you look at it, this is actually a picture of it, and it's depicted as a snake dragon. Okay, this is found on the wall of Babylon. It's a snake dragon. Okay, and then another name that you will see is Nebo. Okay, Merodach is the father of Nebo. Nebo is the god of wisdom and science. When we look at later on, when we look at the names given to the four friends, okay, one of them will have Nebo. So remember that when we look at history, there's the two sides of the history that is fighting. Satan in the background trying to destroy God's way, trying to stop God's people from going out. Okay, and God is there preventing it from happening. Okay, we are told that they brought some of the treasures on the first stage to Shinar. Okay, Shinar is actually a place in on the Euphrates Tigris River. Okay, it's found over there. We call it the Mesopotamia region. Okay, Sumer and all those places are there. If you look at the Bible itself in Genesis 11:2, they say that the Tower of Babel was built there. In fact, they have the remains of the Tower of Babel in the city of Babylon. Later we'll show you some pictures on it. Okay, and right from the very beginning, Nimrod was the builder. He was the one who started all this city. His name, Nimrod, simply means a rebel. Okay, and he defied God, said, God, I don't care, you're going to send another flood, you're not going to destroy us anymore. And that's why he built that up. Okay, now, interestingly enough, the Akkadian name for Babel is actually the gates of the gods. Okay, usually we say Babel means confusion, which is true, but the old names, when they build it, they are thinking about gates to the god. They are thinking of going up to heaven so they can enter into the gates of gods. Okay, so that's what it is. All right, so they took all these things and they brought it back to Babylon, to the temple of Merodach. Okay, a big impressive building. I'll show you some pictures later on. Okay, and what is interesting is the numbers given. If you read all the rest, Nebuchadnezzar actually collected 5,469 items. The Babylonians have a very good accounting. They account everything that they took. But there's one thing that was not in the list when they captured the city. Okay, anybody know what was the thing that was not taken away from the temple?
Stone. The Ten Commandments. Is it the Ten Commandments? Oh, sorry.
Commandments, yeah, okay. The whole ark. Okay, the whole ark of God was taken. Okay, everything else was taken except for the ark. And Ellen G. White says this in her book. She said that the ark was hidden in the cave. Okay, the ark of God was hidden in a cave, and she said this very interesting. I'm waiting for it to be fulfilled. She said that in the last days, this ark will be revealed, will be shown to the people. Okay, they will take it out from the cave itself. So that is something that is interesting to look out. But anyway, they took 5,000 gold pieces, and that is enough for the thousands of guests during the Belshazzar's party. We're going to talk about that later on again. Okay, so that's something that's interesting over there. Any questions so far? Okay, I want to go a little bit faster, so I'm going to skip some of this. Like I said, all these are recorded, so you can actually go back in and look at it. Okay, but what was interesting enough was that now Nebuchadnezzar came down south. His intention was to go down to Egypt and fight with Pharaoh Necho. So as he was coming down to Jerusalem, he captured and then subdued the people in Palestine, and then he captured Jerusalem and he went down. When he was about almost reaching Egypt, what happened was the news came. His father, okay, his father Nabopolassar died. Okay, now in these old days, okay, when a king died, other people will come in and fight for power, to go for the throne. So the moment Nebuchadnezzar heard that, he says, he's going to cut short his mission, he's going to go back. Okay, and so he go back. And what he did was, I mentioned that in between Jerusalem and Babylon itself, okay, there's a desert, mountains and desert. He decided to take the routes back. Okay, whereas the rest of the people, now, let's say something. It wasn't only the Israelites that were captured. It wasn't only Daniel's friends who were captured. There were other people from other parts in Palestine that was also captured. Bear that in mind. Okay, it's not just Israel, but it was in the Bible, they just mentioned about Israel. Like I said, that was the center, that was the focus. But there are other people that were captured too. And all these were, like we said earlier on, they took all the royalties and so on to train them up. Okay, and at the same time, so that the people that remained behind will not rebel. So that's what happened. So the main party where Daniel and his friends went by the normal route. Okay, for them 2 months. Let me see whether I got, yeah. So this is what it is. So Nebuchadnezzar went across the desert area. This is what desert area, the mountains are here. He crossed the Jordan River into Jordan, and then he goes up the mountain and down into the desert. Okay, and he rushed back. Okay, within 15 days, and he took the thrones. Whereas the rest of the prisoners and the soldiers, the main party, goes up north, turn into the east is the Euphrates River, and then go back down. Took about 2 months. Okay, so that is the thing that happened to him. So he went back, he became the king. Okay, and again, like I said, when we think of king of north, king of south, there's a reason. Okay, because they come from the north and the south. All right, that was just something. No, that was it. Now, my next question is: was Daniel prepared for all this?
No.
What do you think? I heard a no.
No.
Yeah, I heard you that, Lottie. No. How about the rest? What do you think? Was Daniel prepared? Well, it's a yes and no. Daniel was prepared because, okay, Jeremiah, until the time of the capture, 23 years, he'd been preaching, telling the people, look, God will send his servant Nebuchadnezzar to come in and take you away, to punish you. Isaiah, long before that, had told them, look, your children will be taken to Babylon. So this prophecy has been there. And I believe that Daniel and his friends, not all the Israelites, okay, a lot of them has apostatized, they have gone to other gods. But they knew this was coming. Okay, they knew that this was coming. So he was partially prepared. Okay? He actually memorized all his Torah like a good Israelite kid does. He actually was prepared to a certain extent. Okay, and so he was partially prepared, but not totally prepared. Nobody can be totally prepared. Okay, so that's what happened. So he was prepared because he studied the word of God, or rather the scriptures. He called it scriptures that he said. He knew that what was coming. We have the scriptures.
You can't imagine the extent.
Yes, very good. In the last days which we are coming to, guess what? We know that it's coming. We want to prepare, but guess what? We can never be fully prepared. Okay, what's coming? Read the Great Controversy. Okay, we are just studying the Great Controversy, the last few chapters. Okay, I don't like to go through that, but we know that it's coming. So when he goes through the desert and he comes through now, this is the current city of Babylon. Okay, this is where the city is. Okay, and this is where Saddam Hussein was trying to replicate the city. Okay, so Daniel was coming in, and Daniel was not prepared for what he see. Okay, Daniel comes from a small place in Jerusalem itself. Jerusalem itself is only about 1/3 of a kilometer square. Babylon at that time was 5 square kilometers. Okay, it's about 15 times bigger than where he comes from. And as he comes through the desert, as he goes through the desert itself, he can see from a distance when they are nearby, he can see this tall building. That is the temple of Marduk. Okay, the ziggurat. There's the Greek historian Herodotus. He says that it was 8 towers, that one above the other. It was granting out in the middle of the desert. You can see it spanning out. Okay, and beside it, on the side itself, there's another one they call the Tower of Babel. Okay, the city was enormous. They say that they can drive a few chariots on the wall itself, and they can even have place to turn around and move. Okay, it was really well prepared, right? The city is surrounded by a moat, water, so it's not easy to go around. So the city is well protected. I'll show you a map in a while. Okay, this one here is the wall in the city. When you go through the, not this one, but the other side. When you go through the gate, when you go through the bridge itself, they come out and they saw this, the gate of Esther. Okay, Esther, the gate itself. This is the gate. And Hitler, when he went and he actually took all these little bricks out, pieces by pieces, and brought it back to Berlin. And Suan was telling me she saw this wall in the Berlin Museum. Okay, so that's what it is. It's great. So any young people, any child who has come from a small little village or small little town, when you see this city, you'll be amazed by it. Okay, all right, just a little bit more here. This is the map I'm going to show you. This is the old city, the beginning city, later they extended out to here. Okay, the river is built going right through the middle of it. And then of course they divert it to make a moat. Okay, it goes underwater through the city inside there now. Later, when we look at the last party, the Zesha, this map will be useful. Okay, how the Persian actually came in. Then in the next chapter, the chapter 3, when they had a statue. Okay, at this point of time, this wasn't finished built. The statue is most likely in this plain over here, this area here. All right, that's where the statue was. All right, this is the city itself. The walls are thick. Okay, like what is shown over. This is just the artist's conception, but they actually found the ruins. Actually found the ruins of the place itself. Okay, so that's a little bit. All right, let's quickly go on. Okay, so the king told Ashpenaz that he is supposed to bring all the children of Israel. And again, like I said, it's not the children of Israel only, it's all those young people from the place itself. And they go over there and they look for certain qualification, no blemish, good looking, gifted. Sounds like one of us. All right, so he does that. Now, I'd like to look at several words over here, get the concept. Okay, first of all, they use the word children of Israel. And people always question, but Israel was already captured by the Assyrians. So what's wrong? Why are they still called Israel? Why aren't they called Judah? Okay, what happened is that when God looked at the whole of Israel, he said they always look at Judah and Israel together. So when he used the word Israel, he refers to everybody, all right, not just Judah. So we do that. That's one thing. Now, the other thing is, when they say children, when I first look at it, children of Israel, I was thinking that Daniel was a young small little boy running around. But then it doesn't match, okay, because he's only given 3 years of education and he was tested. Then when I started to look into the way they do education in Israel, I realized what was it. Now, in Israel, this is around the Jesus time. The children, when they are young, old enough to read, until they are 12 years old, the boys, especially the girls, they still come in and join. They have to memorize the whole Torah, the 5 books of the Bible. They actually memorize it, so they know everything. All right. By the time they're 12, they are considered as grown-up. Okay, grown-up in the sense that they are given responsibility on the religious side, spiritual side. Okay, so they are allowed to wear certain things, the scarf. Okay, they are allowed to take part in certain prayer sessions and so on. Okay, and that. Now, a little beside this, when they are 12 years old, they go through a very important ritual. All right, for people of Israel, they like the child to be trained by a rabbi. So what they do is they bring all these people to the temple itself. Then the priests will come in and they start to question the child. Okay, what do you know about this? And they give them readers from the Old Testament, from the Torah itself, to test them. Okay, the purpose of the testing is to find out, all right, whether the child knows the Bible or not. And they're going to select those child that they liked to be their disciples. All right, those are the rabbis, they choose. So 12 years old, they spot this one hanging out. Okay, so that's the education. All right, now, I don't think Daniel was 12 at the time, okay, because he was still a child in that sense. In the Bible itself, when you're 16 to 20, you're considered a young man. Remember Elisha, when he was going through, and then there were some children that was running around and then laughing at his bald head. Remember, and Elisha called the she-bear to come out. Those were not children. Those were teenagers. All right, they were 17 years old, 18 years old around that time. So I suspect that was about the age where Daniel was taken away from his home. Okay, and to Israelite, when you're that old, okay, they actually let them stay at home. But once they reach 30, they have to go out. Okay, the responsibility is they have to build their own homes. They have to be responsible on their own. All right, so that's what it is in the Israel custom. Okay, so Daniel, when he was taken to Babylon, I believe he was around the age 17, 18, and that was why in Ellen G. White writing, he said that they entered 3 years of university. Okay, that was the time, about the age. All right, I'm running short of time. Okay, let's see what happens. All right, 3 years they were supposed to be trained. Okay, and then there was a change of name. I'm going to go a little bit faster. Now, you notice that before they were captured, the Hebrew names, they had everything about El. El is talking about God, or Yahweh. Okay, talking about Jehovah. Okay, El again, Yahweh. So the Israelite name has meanings. Okay, remember I was in the Sabbath school class, I told you that there were meanings to the genealogy from Adam all the way down to Noah. There was a message in the names. Okay, their names has meaning. Just like in the Chinese, all of us, when you choose Chinese name, there is a meaning. Our parents have certain traits that we want in the child, and so they name it that way. When they went over there, okay, Ashpenaz came and they changed the name of all these kids, and they put it to names of their own gods. Bel, okay, Shadrach, okay, Meshach is Aku. Aku is the moon goddess. Okay, today you look at the Israelites, not Israelite, the Islam, the crescent, that's Aku. Okay, from those old days. Okay, Nebo I mentioned before is the god of science and wisdom. So they change all the names. Why do they change their names? Well, several reasons. One is easier for the Babylonians to remember. Two is this: when you change your name, okay, you forgot, okay, the past. You're living into a new era now. Everything is different. Okay, they're trying to change the thoughts of these young people. That is brainwashing to a certain extent. Okay, all right, this is something just out of interest. They discovered in their digging, they discovered a clay prism. Okay, in those days, they either make it into a cylinder or into a prism shape. And they found these three names. And one of the authors was suggesting that this could be the names of Daniel's three friends. Could be, I do not know. Okay, that is just extra biblical. So you know that people exist with that same name itself. Okay, there's a change of name. Now, notice something. Daniel and his friends did not oppose the changing of names. You notice that? They didn't say anything. They just accepted the names and they used the names. In fact, so much so that Daniel's three friends, whenever we remember Daniel's three friends, we always remember Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, the original name. Okay, so they accepted it without problems. Okay, all right. In the last days, when we go back to heaven, God says that our own name will be changed. God's name will be written on our forehead. Okay, when we say that God's name, we're looking at God's character. Okay, when we go to Daniel, Revelation itself. Okay, we have God's name written on our forehead. Okay, that is God's character. Okay, so name actually means character itself. Now, let me just keep going quickly. All right, we're doing name, I mentioned that. Okay, here comes the thing. Daniel did not go against the name change, but when he came to the food, he said down here very strongly, he said that he purposed not to defile himself. Why? Why is that so? He didn't say anything about the names, but when it comes to food, he was very adamant he must not defile himself. What is the reason? Okay, I don't have much time. Let me just quickly go on. Okay, all right. I was telling you that I'm going to share some things that you. Okay, in Bible Gateway, if you go to Bible Gateway itself, you can have parallel Bible versions, and that's one very good way of studying. Okay, any book in the Bible, where you can have different versions and can look at how they are translated. And I have three over here. Strong words: purpose in the heart, make up his mind, resolved. Those three things were very, very strong. Okay, and it makes me wonder. Daniel was 16, 17, 18. That is the time when the students are very embarrassed to be different. You ask them questions. I know my students are about the age. When you call them questions, especially the boys, sometimes they are so nervous they don't know what to say. Okay, but they can talk a lot. But the moment you call them, they're not saying anything. Why? Because they do not want to be embarrassed. They do not want to be wrong. They do not want to stand up like a sore thumb. I'm sure Daniel goes through that stage. But why? Why did he want to be different? Why did he want to be a vegetarian? Why? What's the thing? Okay, there are several reasons. Okay, when you take the food from the king itself, you're actually pledging your allegiance to the king. And when you pledge your allegiance to the king, you will be also pledging your allegiance to their gods. Okay, remember that this is a battle not physically nation against nation, it's God against God. So that's one thing. Another reason is that the food is usually offered to idols. The meat is given to the idols, they pray for it, then they eat it. Now, if you eat this food from the idol and you become strong and healthy, you are blessed by God. Okay, so that's what it is. Okay, those people from the Buddhist family or those Taoism or those, you know what I mean. Okay, they always have this offering, they give it to the gods. And after the offering, guess who eats them? The people eat them. Okay, that's what happened. Okay, then also there are unclean foods. They found records of the military buying pork for their food. So pork was part of the food that was given. So pork was there. The other thing was Israelite, they eat kosher. Kosher means they drain the meat from all the blood until there's no blood in there. Okay, Daniel probably was a kosher, I guess. Okay, and also they drink wine, king's wine. Okay, those are some of the reasons that is there. But I think, to me, I think that the main reasons that Daniel said that he don't want to defile himself. Daniel said that I'm not going to do it for two reasons, and that's the next two reasons. He realized that his body is a temple of God. Okay, and because he's a temple of God, he cannot defile it. And that's one lesson that we can learn. Okay, our body is a temple of God. It's not for you to play with. You have to take care of it. The other one is he realized that food, okay, affects mind. Okay, and here he's having a battle of the mind, not just physical alone, but the mind itself. And food is one of those things that affect us. If you drink wine and so on, you lose control of your mind. Okay, so I think Daniel realized those 2 points. Okay, not because he wants to be a vegetarian. I think that Daniel was probably a meat eater before that time. Okay, he probably eat meat and so on. Okay, but he has no choice. He doesn't want to eat the food given by the king. Okay, for those two reasons. Okay, now this is something outside. Okay, when you look at Moses, God gave him a lot of rules. Okay, notice that the rules always telling about clean and unclean. Okay, you have to keep yourself away for 7 days. Okay, God purposely used the rules to teach them to differentiate between the clean and the unclean. Okay, that's one of the purpose that he does that. Anyway, I'm going to go on. All right, this is from Ellen G. White writing. YI is the youth instructor. Okay, I remember reading youth instructor when I was a young guy, but nowadays they don't have it anymore. And she mentioned that, okay, Moses did that because they don't want to confuse their minds, they don't want to cloud their powers of discernment. Okay, and also he want to avoid all the customs and practices. That's one thing. Now, there was another thing that was here, and that was this. Okay, they have to keep to the strict path of temperance. Okay, that is very important. Now, there is another thing that I like to mention. Okay, no, I didn't have it here. Okay, besides food, Daniel did other things. I'm sure he keeps fit. Okay, I'm sure he also does something. He keeps himself away from bad companies. Okay, so food alone is not enough. We have to make sure we keep ourselves away from bad food. That's something that we want to watch out for the last days. All right, I'm going to go quickly on. Okay, the second. Okay, I'm going to skip one. Okay, here. Okay, in verse 9. Now God had brought. Now the word brought. Okay, if you go back to the Blue Letter Bible and you look at the Strong Concordance, they show that the word brought actually is the same Hebrew word as gave. Okay, so that's the second thing that God gave. The first one, God gave Judah into Nebuchadnezzar's hand. The second one, God gave Daniel into favor, okay, with the prince of the eunuch. So God actually was the one who actually bestowed that gift. It wasn't something that Daniel has naturally. Maybe he has it, but God has given him extra. Okay, and if you look at the trait in youth instructor, they talk about the different traits. Okay, it sounds like something like the fruit of spirit. And as Christians, I believe that all of us should bear the fruit of the spirit. If we let God take care of us, we should bear the fruit of the spirit. Okay, all right. And then verse 11. Now, verse 11 in the King James Bible, it says, so Daniel said to Misa. Okay, that's King James now. It's a mistranslation. The word Misa is not the name of the person. Misa is actually the steward. All right. So Daniel went to the chief of the steward, Apanes. Okay, and Apanes says, no, I cannot do anything. But, you know, the guy is very smart. He doesn't want responsibility. So he told Daniel, look, you go to the one in charge of you, the steward in charge of you, talk to the person. Okay, then you can go through. So Daniel went to the steward itself, and he asked for 10 days. Okay, 10 days of vegetables and water. Okay, 10 days is a short time, but Daniel was very confident. Okay, now the word vegetables actually comes from a Hebrew word which means from the seed. So anything that is planted, okay, is what is pulse, lentils, and so on. Okay, and I heard this many times in the Adventist circle. They say, "Oh, see, vegetarian food is good." Yes, vegetarian food is good for us, but Daniel chose vegetable because these are the things that are not offered to the idols. Okay, I believe that Daniel, before he came over, he eats lamb, the sheep. Okay, but he chose vegetable because that's the least problem, and water. And actually, in many research today, they found that if you take a plant-based diet, actually help us to reduce the chances of cancer, okay, high blood pressure, and so on. So he does that. All right. Okay, I might have to go over time, but I'm just going to go through this one quickly. Okay, I'm going to skip this one. All right, 10 days. Okay, this is what is given in youth instruction. He said that 10 days is just enough time. Okay, Daniel did not act rashly. Okay, he knew that 10 days was enough to prove, okay, that abstinence is good for you. And in 10 days time he did, okay, show that that was what it is. Okay, all right. I'm going to have to skip some of this. I just leave it on there for a few seconds and then go through. Okay, all right. The third gift. First, he gave Judah away, then he gave favor in Abraham, and then third one, okay, God gave knowledge, skill, and so on. Okay, so what happened is that this shows something. Daniel cooperated with God. He ate the best possible food that he has, and he keep away from the bad companies, and then God actually added on. So this is like man working with God. You do your part, God does his part, and this is what is the result. God gave them knowledge, skill, learning, etc. Okay, and so Daniel became one of the top people over there. Okay, I'm going to skip all this. Okay, you can read the one. All right, let me just finish off the last thing. It's 4 o'clock. Okay, the Bible says Daniel continued until the first year of King Cyrus. Now, I was reading this, I was wondering, why did Daniel put this in there? What happened on the first year of King Cyrus? From the time Daniel was captured until the first year of King Cyrus, guess how long that was? 70 years. Yep, 70 years. So what Daniel was trying to show was that God kept him, okay, until the very end, that he can see the release of his people, that his people can be released back to the country. He lived until that time. God kept him until that time. He was around 90 years old at the time. And I think that some of you people, young people especially, you find that you might be one of those people like Daniel, where you live to see the second coming. Cyrus is considered as the Messiah. Okay, if you read the Bible, Cyrus is the Messiah. So some of you might have the opportunity to live until the second coming of Jesus. Okay, all right. Okay, I'm going to skip all those. We will talk about that. That's my last point, and then I'll go on to the last part. At the time when Daniel was living back up in the east itself, in China, guess what? You have Confucius. They live about the same time. Okay, the Bible didn't talk about Confucius, but we know that they live about the same time. And Confucius is a very wise man. Okay, in fact, I believe that he has some revelations. He told the people of Israel that the man of truth will come from the west. Okay, he probably was referring to Jesus. Okay, all right, that was just something out of the point, out of the thing itself, just something for fun. I should have cut this one shorter. 2 hours is 4 o'clock. Okay, so what I like you to do is, for the rest of this week or next week until the next session, I'd like you to think about what you learned about God in Daniel 1 and what kind of lessons you learned for yourself, okay, regarding the last days. Okay, I'm going to quickly skip all this down. Okay, what have you learned? What lessons have you learned, especially the last days, that you can apply? What are some of the things? I'd like you to think through, okay, because that is part of your preparation for the last days. Okay, and then maybe the next sections in 2 weeks' time. Okay, hopefully we have more time. Okay, I'll cut short on the introduction is a little bit long because I need to give you the background so that when we go on to the next few chapters, you can see the picture better. All right, like Belshazzar time, how did the Persian come in? Okay, and things like that. So I'm giving a little bit of background so you know. All right, we will continue with chapter 4. Okay, the reason why I'm doing chapter 4 is because, remember I talked about the first 6 chapters, they're high stake. So we'll go chapter 4 and chapter 5 for next one. All right, so in 2 weeks' time, we will go into chapter 4 and chapter 5. So what I'd like you to do is read chapter 4 and 5. Okay, and then at the same time, think about what you learned about God, what you learned that can be lessons for us in the last days. Okay, okay, before I finish off, there's some more things, but before I finish off, anyone has any questions or anything you want to bring up? Anyone has anything to say? Any questions?
I have a question. Just
David, yeah. Yes, Robert.
maybe it's a tidbit. You said Daniel before the capture, he was possible to eat the meat. I was wondering, how about the wine? Do you think he drank the wine before he was captured? Any?
Right. He's an Israelite. So usually for Israelite, when they talk about wine, he's talking about the fresh juice.
Grape juice.
Yeah, grape juice. That's it, Roddy. Grape juice. So he probably have drank grape juice, but not the wine that gives you that sort of make you drunk. Okay.
Not fermented anyway.
Not fermented. Yeah. Yeah.
The Jewish word for wine meaning, grape juice.
Yeah, fruit fresh from the fruit tree. That's what he is. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, he drink water. That is good. Water is the best. How about the rest? Anyone has any more thing to ask?
Well, I need the PowerPoint to digest.
Okay, I'm recording it down. Okay, and
okay.
so, yep. So once I finish,